Tonight we're going to be decorating or teaching you to decorate some cookies. This is something I learned in 4-H many years ago, and I'm going to give you some tips tonight too, because this is something you can actually show at the fair. Don't necessarily recommend using real cookies. You can always buy styrofoam and cut out the cookie shape. And then this icing we're using tonight is actually something I'm going to give you a little trick a little later that it will keep forever. My first cake was a 3-tiered wedding cake, and it kept for almost 3 years and until it broke because I dropped it. And so there's a few things you're going to need tonight. Make sure you have your whole kit ready. And remember, we're just doing the icing part, so hopefully your cookies are already cooked. But what we're going to need tonight is some powdered sugar, which you were not given. I always recommend getting the name brand powdered sugar. Doesn't matter which one. The generic ones just don't do so well in icing. And so you're going to need some warm water, powdered sugar, and then your meringue powder. Do you know what meringue powder is? Ella, do you know what meringue powder is?
I have no idea. No.
Yeah. Most people don't know what it is, and what it is cornstarch and dried egg whites. And so you're kind of adding in eggs without actually having the eggs. So it's actually really easy to use. And again, remember that tip I said? If you add a tablespoon of cream of tartar, your icing is going to really get super hard, and it'll sit up almost like styrofoam, so it's easier to show at the fair, because we all know how hot it is at the fair, right? And so normally icing would melt at the fair, so if you add about a tablespoon of cream of tartar to your mix, then you won't have any problems because it's going to set like almost like styrofoam. So we're going to get started. Ella's going to be on the mixer tonight, and so what I need you to do is to grab 1 more cup of powdered sugar for me. So she's going to scoop that out of there. Always remember, when you're using powdered things like flour, powdered sugar, you want something flat, because what I'm going to make sure she does is she scrapes the top. And so she's going to use this to scrape it. She can shake it, but make sure you shake it and then scrape it off. So make sure it's a nice level cup for this one, because if you add too much or too little, then you're going to have to adjust your water. So again, flour, powdered sugar especially, make sure you use a spatula or something to scrape it off. So go ahead and dump that one in. So my recipe tonight is a little bit different from yours. You're actually only going to use 1 tablespoon of the meringue powder. Tonight we're making a bigger batch, so it's easier for you to see. So I'm going to ask Ella to add 3 tablespoons of meringue powder to that, please. Meringue powder is something that may be hard to find. I believe this one, some of it was bought at Hobby Lobby. They also have it at Michael's, and I think even Walmart has it. So it's really not horrible to find. You'll usually find it in the baking section. Walmart has it in the cake decorating section. It is there. Just make sure you buy meringue powder. Again, this is royal icing. Not my favorite for taste, but it does do a very good decorating job. It is royal. A lot of times you'll see buttercream. Buttercream's not so good to show at the fair because it melts. And so I actually am going to show Ella how to move the bowl up on the mixer. I'm using a big mixer. I have burned up a lot of little hand mixers on icing because icing can get really hard. And so I'm going to have Ella move it up. And so I want you to take this and move it around. So that goes all the way up. Keep going. Let's go the other way. Go the other way. Okay. And on the other side is the speed, so you have to push harder. Keep going. There you go. On the other side is the speed. I want you just to turn it on to the very first speed. So it may get loud because it is a big mixer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding the warm water in. So just go ahead and add about 5 tablespoons. No, using the measure. Always measure. 5 tablespoons of warm water. Warm water, and we will be back in a little bit once we get it to about the right consistency. Okay, so we're almost there on the icing, and it is really hard to see, so I'm going to ask my camera person to kind of show down in the bowl. It is kind of hard to see. It is still a bit runny. This is not how we want it when we're going to be decorating. I always recommend having a spatula because we have tons of powdered sugar up on the side. So you're going to want to mix that down, and then you're also going to want to mix in a little bit more. And this is where on the directions it says only put 3 tablespoons of water in to begin with on your recipe. And you always just be prepared, have a little extra powdered sugar, have a little extra water, because you're going to want the icing just right. If you don't have it just right, your stars, which is what we're going to be using tonight, are going to get flat. And if you have it too hard, your hand is going to get sore when we get ready to actually put the stars on the cookies. So I'm going to have Ella just add in just a little bit more. We're going to turn on the mixer a little bit, add in a little bit more powdered sugar. Good. Go ahead and, as you can see, we're wearing aprons because I'm messy in the kitchen. Completely okay to be messy in the kitchen. That's why our countertops clean very well. So when we know it's done, I'm going to turn this off real quick. It kind of keeps its shape when you put it on a spatula. So I'm going to scoop a little bit out. I'm going to take my finger, I've washed my hands, and you kind of pull up. And when it keeps its shape, you know you're about done. So you can kind of see we have a little bit of a peak there. Just take it and scoop it up. Yeah, actually, sorry Ella, I have to add just a little bit more. This is one thing, it's going to take experience. And so I've done this, I'm not even going to tell you how old I am, but I have done this quite a few times. And so right now I know my stars are going to fall a little bit. So I'm going to ask Ella to just put in the rest of the bag. We don't have that much more in ours. Yours, I'm going to recommend just adding a tablespoon at a time, maybe even a teaspoon, just to make sure it's the right amount. So go ahead and put that in. And turn that on. And let it mix for a bit. Mixes, I'm going to actually go over a little bit of what the things you need. Now, you were given 2 disposable or 1 disposable, we're either going to call these decorator bags or piping bags. You have your tips. These are the tips. Some of you got different size stars. Tonight we're going to use the star because it is one of the easiest tips to use. The bigger the number right now, the bigger the star. And so we have 2 different ones because I'm going to show you the difference. Now, the other thing you have with you is a coupler. There are 2 parts to this, and it unscrews. The really expert cake decorators don't use these that often, but for us newbies, we definitely want to use them because it makes it much easier to change the tip on our bag. The other thing I would like you to have is a pair of scissors to clip off the bottom of your bag, and it may sound weird, a wet paper towel or a wet rag, and I'll show you why we're going to use that later. And of course your cookies. So make sure you have everything ready. We're going to have Ella turn off the mixer, and we're going to get the piping bag ready. So the piping bag, all you need to do is cut off the very end. Don't cut too much because then you're going to have too big of a gap. So you're just going to cut off the end, and then you take your coupler apart and put the big part in your bag. And so super easy, you take it, you drop it in, and if it's not big enough, if you have not cut off enough yet, like I did, you just simply push it back and cut off a little bit more. Okay, squeeze that coupler back down so you have a little bit of the plastic through. Make sure you have not gotten all the way to the rings. Or to the threading. You just want the very end. Now the fun thing is, again, all you do is take your tip, put it over the end, take the circle, and screw it on. So the reason we use a coupler, let's say I was decorating cookies, I was using the star tip, and then I decided to write somebody's name. Instead of taking everything out of my bag, I can use the same color, take off the end, and simply change the tip. Again, it's for those of us who maybe don't have a bunch of different bags we want to get ready. We just want to use one. So make sure that's on there nice and snug, nice and tight. If not, when you start pushing it out, you are going to have some problem. So again, make sure it's nice and snug. Again, you're just simply putting the big part of the coupler inside. The tip goes outside of the coupler, and then the ring, the O-ring, goes on the outside of that, and you simply tighten it up. Maybe if you're got little hands, you might want to have mom or dad or your helper help you tighten it, because again, you want it nice and snug, because if it's not, you're going to get icing everywhere. Now, the other thing I was super happy someone taught me to do is to fold back the top of my bags. And so this keeps your hand from getting gross, and it keeps the top of the bag from getting gross. So you're going to want to fold it back, and then you simply put your hand underneath, right? So you keep your fingers from getting gross, okay? So I'm going to actually let Ella have at it. We're going to put this down. So I have a flat metal spatula. I also have a angled spatula. I use this one to flatten icing and this one really to fill the bags for most of the time. So I'm going to let you scoop a little bit out. What you want to do is get it down there and then use your finger to kind of brush it off. The least amount of air you can get in your bag, the better, because if you are squeezing and all of a sudden you get an air pocket, what's going to happen is you're going to get weird shapes on your cookies. So you definitely don't want to do that. So you're going to get it in there and you're going to fill up your bag as much as you can. The thing, if you want to add coloring, you could add regular food coloring to this to color. You want to make sure you get your icing to about the right consistency before you add food coloring. I really like the gel food coloring because you only need a little bit and you get a much stronger color. If you're doing like blue, you would almost need, in this amount of icing, the whole blue of a liquid food coloring. The gel, you just need just a little bit. What we do with gel food coloring is it's got a foil top on it. I just take and stab this through the top, then I have a little bit on my spatula and I just wipe it in the bowl. That's all you really need for food coloring if you're going to use it. So make sure you keep your hand underneath so it protects your hand, and then you're going to squeeze it out. Okay, so the next one you're going to do is you unfold, okay, unfold, and at the very top you're going to twist. Okay, this is what's sealing up your bag. Always squeeze your bag, thumb and first finger, squeeze it and twist. Okay, and that's how you're going to hold your bag. Now, for some little ones, it might be the least amount you can put in the bag, the better. Because if you fill these bags, it's really going to be a big hand that's going to have to hold them. So, thumb, first finger, and you hold it, and then what you're going to do is squeeze with those hands to get the star to come out, okay? Does that make sense? She doesn't know, but it's kind of how you milk a cow. Does that creep you out?
No.
Okay. All right, so grab hold, make sure it's always nice and twisted, because the twist is what seals your bag shut, and you're going to hold it. So go ahead and hold it. Okay, so she's got it. Now you have that. So now I want you to do, which I'm going to show you first. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, so we have definitely some icing coming out, and that's why, again, I'll say you need a wet rag, because you can wipe it off real quick. Now, to do stars, I'm going to have our cameraman kind of zoom in here. I'm going to start with our Christmas tree. Can you see? Okay, so I'm going to start with our Christmas tree, and I like to go around the outside first. That way you don't have any weird gaps. And so just remember, you don't squeeze until you're right in the correct spot. So you're going to go to the top, you're going to squeeze, and then stop squeezing and pull away. Okay? And if you need to adjust a little bit, you can. My icing is not perfect tonight, and I will tell you that. Cake decorating is never perfect. Squeeze, and then pull away after you stop squeezing. And you can see how I've got stars. And stars will have a little bit of a tip in it. If you want, you can squeeze and then twist and pull away, and that will make a little bit different shape. So you can experiment with it. So that's the thing. I'm going to actually let Ella do some more of these cookies, and then I'm going to show you some other things you can do with the star tip. Okay, so I told you to have a wet rag, and the other reason, if you need to take a break at all, the best thing with your tip to make sure it doesn't dry out and get stuck is you put it in a wet paper towel or in a wet rag, and you just fold it closed. So for instance, if someone comes to the door or you have to go to the bathroom or something, put it inside a wet rag, and then you just need to wipe it off. I always recommend pushing out a little bit because that end stuff will be a little bit wet. But again, you now have kept your tip not from not drying out. The other thing is you can use your wet rag to wipe off the tip. So a couple of the other things we do with the star tip is this is actually the tip we use to do borders on cakes. And so it is simply like a snail. It's an up and down little thing. And I'm going to show you, unfortunately, we're going to go on this side because it's not as white. So you just simply sideways, you go up and down and then stop. Up and down and stop. Up and down, stop. That's the simple one. If you really want to get fancy, you can kind of go side to side. Stop. Mine did not do the side. Again, sometimes you just want to experiment with it. And so there's all kinds of borders you can do with the star tip. And again, there's multiple different sizes of star tip. There's a leaf tip you can do a border with. We do those on roses where we do the leaves. There's a leaf tip. There's a petal tip. There's the piping tips, which are just for drawing. Tons of different tips. There's some that make flowers just like the star tip, make pretty little flowers. And so I always recommend just getting some tips. They're only about $1 at Hobby Lobby or Walmart. Just get some tips and try it. Cake decorating is super fun and everybody likes the end product. So I hope you had fun. I hope to see some of these at the fair. That would be super exciting if I could go and see some of your products at the fair. Just remember, if you're doing royal icing, add that tablespoon of cream of tartar. Very weird, but it sets it up like a rock. And so you could actually do it right now while it's winter, while it's nasty outside. Do your cake, put it on styrofoam, and you can show it at the fair. It will be completely fine as long as you don't drop it and break it before the fair. So have fun with your cake decorating, and thanks for spending your time with me.